Yes, the man who directed the iconic movie Black Panther was arrested inside of a bank for robbing a bank, but he was not robbing the bank. This story has some twists and turns. We broke this yesterday when it first hit, okay? Now, we have the 911 call and we have the video of him being arrested. I'm going to give you some significant detail and context to what happened during that arrest. Let's first go to the video when Mr. Coogler was arrested by Atlanta police.
Hey, sir. Hey, man. Do me a favor, man. Come this way.
Whoa.
Put your hand behind your back.
Change now, back. Got it. You got it. Is there any reason y'all doing this, bro?
Give me 1 second. Hold on.
Good job, guys.
What does the veil inside have on under our black jacket?
Mr. Coogler was arrested along with those with him. Let's put up a picture of Mr. Ryan Coogler, who is one of the most talented film directors and writers on the planet Earth. Net worth well into the multi-millions. He was at a bank in Atlanta to withdraw from the Bank of America $12,000. He filled out the information properly. He had his ID and he submitted a line. It was a simple quote. He wanted the transaction to be discreet. Now, I'm going to play for you the 911 call because there are some who are saying things like, well, since it's a black woman who called the police on a black man, this cannot be implicit bias. Now that's a damn lie, and I will reveal how much of a lie that is. Yes, black people can be implicitly biased against other black people. There's tons of research, I'm gonna highlight some of that today, but it's adopted from what's called the model narrative, where all is centered around white power or white power structures. So let's play the 911 video, here it is.
I didn't feel comfortable, so he told me to call police while he, I guess, stalled for
What's on the note, ma'am?
It just says I want to withdraw $12,000. Just be discreet.
Is this an actual customer or are they trying to rob the bank?
They had a debit card and he inserted it. He gave me a California ID, but I was like, okay. I was like, how do you want the cash back? And he's like, just look at the note.
And he had no weapons, correct?
Not that I know of. He just has on black sunshades and a black hat.
Is he a black male, white male?
He's a black male. And every time I ask him like a question, he's like, look at the note.
So, okay.
But he inserted his debit card and then I asked for his ID. He handed me his ID as a California ID. But I didn't look at his name because I'm just like so shook up. Like, I don't know what he's trying to do. So I just told him, give me one moment. I have to get my manager.
Okay, so none of his information was even verified. Okay. He might just want to be discreet, but I have police en route.
Yeah, I mean, he might.
He might just want to be discreet, but police are en route. She says, yeah, he might. She's not even sure it's a damn bank robbery. The operator has picked up on the fact this is not a bank robbery, but per protocol, we still have to send the police out. The operator offered a conclusion when they are not supposed to. That operator stepped outside of the boundaries of her job, to say the obvious. Maybe he just wanted to be discreet. A few failures here. Number one, Bank of America obviously has a failure of training that comes down from corporate. That's a structural issue. Number two, I believe implicit bias is at work here. I do not believe, even though this has been identified as a black woman, I do not believe that if a white male would have walked in and did the exact same thing, that outcome would have been the exact same. There's another element, management protocol. Did she actually go get the manager? Did the manager say, yes, call the police, this looks like a bank robbery? Is there a protocol that is supposed to be followed that she did not? What is the protocol and how did it fail? Not only Mr. Coogler, but also by extension, the community he comes from. Let's put up a picture of the Bank of America president. His name is Brian. All right, Brian has apologized to Mr. Coogler. Ryan Coogler, who is worth an estimated $25 million after the seminal Black Panther movie to record-setting box office history, presented the required identification. The teller asked for when he went into the bank branch in Atlanta to withdraw $12,000 in cash. Because of the amount of money, he wrote his request transaction on a piece of paper, a concept that is hardly foreign when making large withdrawals at banks. The note also asks the teller to be discreet, which is also not an unreasonable request considering how much cash was in question. So here's what Coogler said. He went on record, here's what he said. This situation should never have happened. However, Bank of America worked with me and addressed it to my satisfaction, and we have to move on. Coogler said in a statement to Variety. All due respect, Mr. Coogler, I'm not moving on from a damn thing, okay? I respect your personal sentiment. CNN has reached out to Coogler's representative for comment. We deeply regret that this incident occurred. It never should have happened, and we have apologized to Mr. Coogler, Bank of America said in a statement to CNN. Well, let's do a little history on Bank of America, because Bank of America wants you to believe that implicit bias is just a very, very isolated thing. Bank of America has been fined $2.2 million for discriminating against black job candidates for over 2 decades. Now, let me get into the implicit bias. There's a dynamic. It is race on race implicit bias. It's real, it happens. And any black person will tell you they have experienced it too, including this black person. Many researchers have studied implicit bias, often implicit racial or ethnic bias. Is it possible that simply seeing a black person rather than a white person makes more people likely to interpret actions as violent or makes us more likely to behave violently ourselves? Research suggests the answer is possibly yes. For example, research shows that people judge an action as more violent when it comes or is performed by a black person than when the same action is performed by a white person. Here's a little homework. There's a study done decades ago called the Clark-Doll study. That study took white baby dolls and black baby dolls and put them in front of black children. When these black children had a question posed to them, which of these dolls is bad? Which of them looks ugly? Statistically high, the response was the black child was ugly. The black child was bad. Those black children who understood racism not at all were implicitly biased against those that looked like them. Where did they learn it from? What's the question? The parents said, we have never taught our children to hate black people. Where did they learn it? It's a societal structure. They pick up on everything. Children are not always listening, but they are always learning. Decades later, we do the same research study in a post-racial America. Guess what? Results were virtually exactly the same. The parents who saw this started crying because they did not teach their children to be racist against black folk. Implicitly biased is the correct terminology, but it's real. There's more. Implicit bias occurs when someone is consciously aware of stereotypes and rejects them and supports anti-discrimination efforts, but also holds negative associations in his or her mind unconsciously. Scientists have learned that we only have conscious access to 5% of our brains. Much of the work our brain does occurs on the unconscious level. And that is why intentional training is required. Remember, structural racism is designed. In order to destroy it, it must be destroyed by intent, not by as some organic structure that may destroy it. It never will happen. It will never happen like that. It will only happen through intention. All right, my dear brother, what are your thoughts on this case?
You know, it's interesting. Before I get into the case, you're talking about this implicit bias, and actually, last time you and I spoke, many months ago, we had discussed that as well back then, talking about the fact that a lot of these people hold these feelings and they don't even realize that they hold them. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a very interesting study that you've talked about here, and it's an interesting concept that people need to understand better to understand themselves, and of course, everything that's happening around them. Now, for this specific story, obviously, he did nothing wrong. He did everything according to protocol here. Like, his debit card is in the machine so that she can see it's his account. The information pulls up on her computer on her side when that happens. She failed to even bother to look at his name on the ID to see that it matched the account. That, as you said, that is a failure of training. That is something she should have immediately done. And then multiple parts of the video, obviously super concerning, like when the officer just decides, I'm gonna pull my gun. Oh, okay, I guess I don't need to do that now. And he puts it back away, but that was his initial instinct. Black man in a bank, all right, let's get the gun out. Unprovoked. And then the security guard, I think she was, say, good job, guys, as they're walking out. And Coogler himself just looking so defeated. That is one of the things that really struck me the most, because this is happening to him and the expression on his face, his body language is telling you that he's just, well, this is what it's like. It was such a defeated look on him. And that is really, to me, one of the saddest things about that people haven't addressed really is, look at him in that footage. Look at just almost broken because of what was happening, and also not surprised that it was happening.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand, that this isn't a one-off thing. This happens frequently in the United States, across the country, every day.
Yep, and he didn't want this to come out because this happened weeks ago. We just got the video footage this week because somebody tipped off the right person in local news and they requested that tape specifically. And so we got the information.